For this SPSS assignment, we're going to be conducting t-tests to determine a paired sample t-test, also known as dependent sample t, and then an independent sample t. To find both of these, we're going to go under Analyze, Compare Means, and there we have paired sample t. Paired sample t allows us to compare related or dependent scores such as pre-test, post-test. So I'm going to click over score 1 and score 2. It will automatically queue up a second pairing that we don't need, so just ignore that. Then you click OK. Here is your output. What you're going to do is go down to these last 3 columns right here. There's your T, your degrees of freedom, and your SIG. If your hypothesis has no directionality, meaning you think scores will be different or scores will change, then you're going to interpret it just like this as the two-tailed. So you'd have a p-value of 0.089 or non-significant. If you're hypothesizing directionality, such as you think scores will increase or you think scores will decrease, then that's a one-tailed test. So you're going to divide this number by 2, which gives you 0.04, which is statistically significant. So it's really important to know what your hypothesis is before you do your analysis. So you'll report these 3 values, and then you'll come up here and get your mean and standard deviation for score 1 and your mean and standard deviation for score 2. To do an independent sample t, we're going to go under Analyze, Compare Means once again, and now Independent Sample t-test. What we're going to do is click Gender over to our grouping variable, and it's going to have 2 question marks here. It's going to ask you to define groups, so click on that. And it's just asking you what numbers you use to code your nominal variables. And I used 1 for men and 2 for women, so I'm just going to enter in a 1 and a 2. And then you click OK or Continue. Then you click over the score or scores that you want to run. In this case, we're just running 1, which is score 1. So then I click OK. And enlarge this, and you'll see we have a lot of information, most of which we can ignore. This independent t-test involves 2 steps. The first step is to look at this SIG. This is just a signpost telling you where to go. If this value is greater than 0.05, we're going to stay in this top row. If this SIG value is less than 0.05, we're going to go down to this bottom row. This one at 0.62 is greater than, so we're going to stay in the top row. Here's our T, here's our degree of freedom, and here's our SIG. Once again, it's two-tailed, so if we're speculating that men and women will be different, we interpret it like this at 0.463. If we're speculating that men's scores will be higher than women's scores, or if we're speculating that men's scores will be lower than women's scores, that's a one-tailed test. So again, you're going to divide this by 2 to get P is 0.23. Just report those 3 values, the T, the degrees of freedom, and then the appropriate SIG. And then come up here, and once again, we have our means and our standard deviations.